Chapter 356 Uploading the Codexia World. It's done, Maximus muttered, heaving a sigh of relief as he tested his work. After 10 years of modifications, the Codexia world finally looked decent. The worldview expanded, more functions, jobs, unique plots, etc. being added. For this, Maximus needed to study a lot of games, to the point where he nearly went bald. Maximus didn't just get inspiration from the Ethereum realm, he also studied games from other dimensions. Unfortunately, Maximus's time was limited. No matter how grand he wanted the game to be, he still needed to personally input it. 10 years were barely enough to create a game to his satisfaction. Seeing no bugs in the game, Maximus was ready to put it into the server in the Arcane Continent. The Arcane Continent was the only one capable of storing games and applications for the whole Ethereum realm. The Beast Continent didn't have the capability, and the Divine Continent didn't bother to create something similar. This is also the reason 99% of individuals who could access the virtual world were in the Arcane Continent. It was more accessible as long as one had money. In the other two continents? Unless you are in an important position or powerful enough, you wouldn't even know about virtual worlds. There are two ways to access this server in the Arcane Continent. First, directly go to the origin domain and upload it physically. Second was the Ethereum forum. The powerhouse in the Arcane Continent directly puts a link in it to upload any application. Please upload the rune inscription application. Soon, a pocket of space appeared in front of him.
Is this enough?
Taking out a Rubik's Cube filled with runes. This is a copy of the Codexia world inscription. After inscribing it out, making a copy was as easy as creating a rock. Soon, the worlds will begin to evaluate the games, like an administrator. Virtual worlds was of importance, that the worlds will directly evaluate every one of them. Eligible to be uploaded in the virtual world. Please fill out the forms. Forms appeared before him, indicating the various intricacies that came with uploading a virtual world. From profit distribution, pricing, rules, contracts, Maximus quickly filled them up. This worlds will is really meticulous. Maximus muttered after filling them up. He thought there'd be a loophole in the forms, but there was none. It seemed that the worlds will study it deeply, not letting others exploit it. After uploading the Codexia world, it was at the bottom of the rankings. Millions of applications above it made the Codexia world that he worked hard for look like trash. In countless epochs, billions of applications have been uploaded into this virtual world. However, because of its unpopularity, it was eventually taken down. This is also one of the rules in the form: if Codexia world didn't reach a certain standard after 1,000 years, it would be taken down. This is so that the server in the Arcane Continent doesn't get overwhelmed. After all, even with the help of the world's origin, the capability of such a server is limited. Having millions of applications simultaneously is already amazing. However, seeing that the Codexia world is at the bottom, he frowned. It seems that I still need to advertise. There are many ways to advertise, but the most common and easiest is to spend merits. Going to the mission tab of the forum, Maximus looked at merits. In these 10 years, his merits had nearly gone up to 2 sextillion. Those apex sovereigns who had a cooperation agreement with him were really efficient. Maximus could earn over 100 quintillion merit every year thanks to them. Not only that, the dimensional coins he earned also skyrocketed, to almost 100 quintillion every year. After all, although there was a 70% discount, the original price of the items he sold was 2 to 10 times the price. Thanks to the discounts, those apex sovereigns thought that they were getting a bargain. Without worrying that he was scamming them, they were more bold in their purchases, which in turn made his profits increase. Furthermore, the war in the abyss was getting heated, and so were the expenses. More expenses means more profit for him. Maximus heard from his son, Lux, who returned from time to time, that they had occupied 10% of the middle layer of the abyss. Compared to the boundary layer of the abyss, the wealth on this layer was more immense. Just 10% of the land was already much more than the boundary layer. With such large profits, they couldn't help but splurge, giving him more money. He estimated that as the war continued, he would earn more and more. Shaking his head, he quickly input the mission. Mission: a year of virtual world game advertisement. Limit: Arcane Continent. Reward: 100 quadrillion merits per domain. Commissioner: Maximus Shadowcrest. Aha, the rich man is setting a mission again? A tisk, 100 quadrillion merits for an advertisement, just how rich is he? Damn, only in the Arcane Continent? This is discrimination. The gods condemned this kind of discrimination. Ah ha ha ha, this brat has some vision. What can he get if he advertised in your continent? That's right. There are barely any users of the virtual world in the beast continent and divine continent. Paying for advertisement is a waste. There goes 100 quadrillion down the drain. I accept it. Such easy money. I also accept it. 100 quadrillion without doing anything?
Hell yeah.
Brat, I have more population and they're more active in the virtual world. Can you increase the reward? Damn old man, be satisfied. We're not even qualified to advertise here. I'm just asking, don't be jealous. It seems that it's time to create a continental server, otherwise it would always be the arcane continent eating the food. The gods agree to such a decision. A +1. A +1. A +1. But where do we get the materials? Isn't there the rich man? At Maximus Shadowcrest, we would like to buy some materials from you. Could we have a discount? We will advertise your game for free if there is a discount. Looking at the comments under his post, Maximus smiled. Over 500 Apex sovereigns in the Arcane Continent had accepted his mission. This is already half of the Apex sovereigns in the Arcane Continent. As for others, they were either in close seclusion, in the abyss, or didn't care enough about the money, so they didn't accept his task. However, over half already made him satisfied. This is an uninterrupted advertisement for a year. As long as he could keep the players, the Codexia world would surely be a phenomenal game. Seeing that the Apex sovereigns from the Beast Continent and Divine Continent wanted to buy materials to build a continental server, Maximus couldn't help but be excited. If they wanted to create a continental server like the one in the Arcane Continent, it would cost a few sextillion dimensional coins. This is if it's the original price. With his usual pricing, it would cost them at least 10 sextillion to build a continent server. The continental server in the Arcane Continent is different from the Ethercore Tower in his empire. The Ethercore Tower could barely be used in the empire. However, the continental server in the Arcane Continent could not only be used by them. They even let others from the other 3 continents use and connect to its server. From users to a creator like him, they accommodate everyone with just a fee. This also earned them a ton of money. Like the game Maximus had put, each user that entered his game, Maximus needed to pay a top magic crystal per year. The payment to accommodate the game is also different. According to the size of the Codexia world, Maximus needed to pay 100 billion top-grade magic crystals per year. Such expensive fees can earn the Arcane Continent a ton of money. Furthermore, their continental server is not just that. It was also a supercomputer that could analyze the phenomenon up to the essence of law. Maximus had heard that to use this function, one needed to pay a quintillion top-grade magic crystals each time. Knowing these functions, Maximus was eager to upgrade the Ethercore Tower to have such capabilities. Unfortunately, he was dirt poor. He didn't even have a few quintillion dimensional coins after feeding the world tree various materials. Thus, hearing that the Beast Continent and Divine Continent were planning to build a continent server, he couldn't help but be excited. Not only would it alleviate the world, making the Ethernet connection more accessible throughout the Ethereum realm, Maximus could also earn a ton of money. Even if he gave a big discount, Maximus could still earn a few sextillion dimensional coins from the 2 of them. Thinking about it, he hurriedly chatted with the Apex sovereigns of the 2 continents about the price of the materials. Hearing the price, they were not so shocked. After all, there were over 1,000 of them to split the price. However, such an expensive price still needed to be convenient for a meeting, thus they asked for Maximus to wait. Seeing this, Maximus clenched his fist. The money is coming. Chapter 357 Crazy Virtual Game. A few days later, while the other 2 continents were deliberating about building a continental server, the Codexia world began to make a splash in the Arcane Continent. With the money provided by Maximus, the Apex sovereigns were quite active, instructing their subordinates and families. Soon the advertisements about Codexia world spread all over the domain. What is this Codexia world? Some people couldn't help but ask when they saw the amazing visuals in a central plaza. I've seen this picture everywhere, what is it? Others also questioned. No matter what they did, whether working, shopping, or training, all they saw were these advertisements. If not for their patience, they might have already gone crazy. This relentless advertising was truly like a curse in their daily lives. It's the Codexia world, a virtual world created by the Holy Emperor of the Cursed Continent, the guard explained. The cursed continent? They're still capable of creating such a virtual world? It's not that they looked down on the cursed continent, but even the rich and famous beast continent and divine continent were not this active in promoting a game. If you wish to know more, there is a free experience hall available around here. A free trial for the virtual world? Upon hearing that they could try a virtual world for free, they couldn't help but be excited. Although virtual applications was more accessible in the arcane continent, it was by no means cheap. They could only experience this magnificence after paying a large sum. Quickly finding the free experience hall, they were shocked to see many people. Awesome, it's real. I can exchange magic crystals. A rare item. I got a rare item. How? Damn, you're going to be rich. They had come here only to experience the luxury of a virtual world. Seeing the carnival-like atmosphere, the newcomers couldn't help but ask questions. What happened? Is there something special about the game?
Yes, this game is insane. What's insane?
It's the money. This game gives a lot of money. Virtual games directly giving money were quite rare. Even then, it was usually from mythical achievements that deserved rewards. Usually, the money earned from these virtual games came from direct exchanges between players. To see a game that converted their in-game currency to real money was mind-boggling. Ew. A look of excitement appeared in their eyes upon hearing the praise. Looking at the line, they couldn't help but wait eagerly for their turn. Finally, after waiting, they boarded one of the virtual pods and logged into the game. Please insert name. After playing for a few hours and not finding anything substantial, they could only look through the money they had earned. After a quick operation, the money in their game account was transferred to their bank account. 30 gold? In just a few hours? TSK, how awesome. I earned more than 100 gold. You have no luck. I heard others obtained a rare item worth a few magic crystals. Damn, is that possible? Hearing about others getting lucky, they couldn't help but grit their teeth. However, as they looked at their income, they couldn't help but want to buy a virtual pod themselves. A virtual pod is a low-end version of an elite token. An elite token is a magic item costing millions of magic crystals, granting access to all virtual worlds, auctions, shops, maps, etc. However, a virtual pod, besides being bulky, could only access some low-end games. Those higher-end games that could directly give heaven-defying rewards and experience were not accessible. Like experiencing a whole new life in just a few hours, learning unique exercises, honing their will, etc., it was not available in such a low-end virtual pad. Seeing that the Codexia world was playable even on such a low-end virtual pod, they couldn't help but want to buy one. A low-end virtual pod only costs thousands of magic crystals, depending on the model. Based on their earnings in the game, if they could grind day and night, it would only take them about 10 years to get their money back. That is if they stayed still. According to the level scheme, the higher their level, the higher their income. Thinking about it, they hurried to the bank and borrowed money. Borrowing 1,000 magic crystals in the arcane continent is easy, with no collateral. The richness of the continent didn't mind if a few pebbles were borrowed by its citizens. However, with billions of trillions of people borrowing thousands of magic crystals at the same time, the fluctuation in the market was quickly noticed by various organizations. In a branch of Ethereum Gold Chamber of Commerce. What happened? There was a spree of withdrawals in the bank. A branch manager yelled, asking his subordinates. This manager, it seems to be about the newly released virtual game. It's been over a month since the release of the Codexia world. After advertising the virtual game, the Apex sovereigns didn't care about the game anymore. Even the various establishments, after receiving the money, didn't care much. They didn't even bother to try the game. After all, it's just a virtual game at the bottom of the ranking. Thus, upon hearing that it was causing a commotion, the manager couldn't help but be shocked. A Codexia world? Just how? Grasping the data analyzed by his subordinates, there was shock, anger, and a sense of loss evident on his face. After Codexia was advertised, various experience halls were set up in different domains. These were not set up by the masters of the domains themselves, but rather by the Ethereum Pavilion and Shadowhunter Guild. Besides enticing citizens to try the virtual game, they also sold cheap virtual pods. What shocked him was that billions of trillions of people were tricked by this plot. This meant septillions of low-grade magic crystals were scammed from them by the cursed continent. This was the first time such a thing had happened. Usually, it was the arcane continent selling mass-produced goods to the other continents. As the biggest business organization representing the arcane continent, the shame and anger he felt were incomparable. Now, it's been over a month, and he couldn't imagine what would happen in a few more years. Have you tried to compete with them on prices? The manager asked. Yes, we even cut the price in half, but very few bought our virtual pods.
Why is that?
The virtual pods sold by the Ethereum Pavilion and Shadow Hunter Guild come with perks after opening the virtual game Codexia World. Furthermore, they also offer interest-free installment plans for the virtual pods. The manager was speechless about the various tactics employed by them. Aside from the cheap price, there were also interest-free loans. Just how rich were the Ethereum Pavilion and Shadow Hunter Guild? What a headache! Unable to think of a solution, the manager could only report it to the higher-ups. I investigate this virtual game deeper. While the top business organization was panicking, others were curious. Initially, they just scoffed at the game, thinking it was merely for civilians. However, as more and more people played, delving deeper and deeper into the game, they couldn't help but become addicted. It's not just the monetary reward, the fun, new experiences, and thrills brought by the game are comparable to those top games. Although the world of Codexia is small due to its lack of time, they noticed that as more and more people joined the game, the world got bigger and bigger. Like a blank canvas, being painted by them, they're like a god building the world. The rules, physics, logic, etc. are all so solid that it didn't have any bug even under their insane operations. Furthermore, as they inscribe runes to level up, their skills also get enhanced, prompting many powerhouses to join the fray. The Codexia world has it all: money, fun, and enhancement. Meanwhile, in the Cursed Continent, Moonlight Empire. Looking at the number of real-time players, Maximus was both happy and in tears at the same time. This Codexia world is a money pit. Although he lowered the rates of rewards compared to the earlier version, the quantity of individuals playing it still puts a hole in his pocket. With billions of trillions playing, Maximus was spending over 100 quadrillion dimensional coins every day. With more and more players coming, Maximus would have to spend over 100 quintillion every year just to keep the game afloat. This is already all his income from all of his industries, from the Abyss, reselling, and the Dimensional Library. Meaning if he couldn't survive this year, he would be finished. Fortunately, the reward is also incomparable. If the pace that the Moonlight Empire was going earlier was a snail, then having billions of trillions of individuals joining is like taking a rocket. Rare materials after rare materials were being deciphered from the Codexia world. Tens millions of Etherforge reactors also began working, printing these higher-tier sources. Although it's only the 2.0 version capable of printing 100 million units worth of energy per day. Printing these rare resources was still profitable, multiplying the energy value it printed to tens of thousands of times. Maximus was already stocking the rare resources he printed, ready to open a dimensional shop in the Myriad World Mall. This is his only chance to keep the Codexia world afloat. Once he fails, bankruptcy is his only choice. Clenching his fist, Maximus calmed down his excitement.
Chapter 358: Crystal of Life and Enlightenment. A few months later. After several months, the top forces finally uncovered why the Codexia world was generating so much commotion. Aside from the flawless logical rules of the games, devoid of any bugs. Upon reaching a certain milestone in the games, one can access the game exchange list. This list not only contains everything the Ethereum realm has to offer, but also includes some unique items that Maximus hadn't sold before. Among unique treasures, materials, and knowledge, two unique items caught their attention: the Crystal of Life and the Crystal of Enlightenment. Each Crystal of Life can extend one's life by a day. If it were only that, they wouldn't even bother looking at it. In the Ethereum realm alone, many treasures could extend the life of a mortal for millions of years, let alone a few days. However, what's unique about this Crystal of Life is that it can be used an unlimited number of times regardless of the realm. Unlike others, which had all sorts of limitations, the Crystal of Life did not. Meaning that if they could have an unlimited number of crystals of life, living an eternal life is no longer a dream. A feat that can only be achieved by an apex sovereign can easily be achieved by anyone, especially those Tier 8 powerhouses. If they could have more time, the chances of reaching Tier 9 would skyrocket multiple times. Furthermore, even if they couldn't advance, they could still prolong their lives with the Crystal of Life. In the exchange list, a single Crystal of Life only costs the equivalent of 10 million low-grade crystals. Although it was unreachable for others, for peak powerhouses like them, besides the apex sovereigns, it was nothing but pocket change. Their daily cultivation alone costs hundreds of millions. What's an additional 10 million to extend their life? Unfortunately, they can only obtain the Crystal of Life in the game. The Crystal of Life was in limited quantity and was not for sale. They can only enter the game and fight others for it. This also elevated the game to another level. With various Tier 8 powerhouses entering the games, the Codexia world became even more lively and chaotic. It also propelled the game from last place to enter top 10,000 rank. As for the Crystal of Enlightenment, although it also received attention, it's not as significant. The function of the Crystal of Enlightenment was to make one undergo enlightenment on a certain subject for a moment. After various calculations, this so-called enlightenment is only equivalent to a full day of concentrated study. With time chambers reaching 1 to 1 million ratio, this function is useless. Instead of spending 10 million on that so-called enlightenment, why not buy more crystals of life? However, what most of the forces didn't know is that the Crystal of Enlightenment is not simple. The brief moment of enlightenment is not based on their comprehension. No matter how stupid they were or if they were in a bottleneck, a single Crystal of Enlightenment could break that barrier. Fortunately, not all forces are stupid. Some were more meticulous and lucky. They tried the Crystal of Enlightenment at the right or enough times, thus noticing these properties. Not wanting competition, they quickly suppressed the news. After all, there is a limit to the Crystal of Enlightenment. Less competition means more for them. While they were scrambling in the Codexia world, Maximus was busy modifying the Aetherforge reactor. The current Aetherforge reactor output is 100 million units of energy per day. Even if Maximus had millions of Aetherforge reactors printing rare resources worth thousands of times, he could only earn 2 to 3 trillion dimensional coins a year. Compared to the tens of trillions of dimensional coins cost of each Aetherforge and quintillions of dimensional coins maintenance fee of the Codexia world, it was nothing. To break even, Maximus had to reconfigure the Aetherforge reactor or print rarer resources. With higher tier powerhouses entering the Codexia world, in just a few decades, they should be able to decipher Tier 7 and above rare materials. By then, even if the Aetherforge reactor remained the same, he would surely turn his income upward. Unfortunately, he couldn't wait that long. With the money-devouring Codexia world, he would be bankrupt sooner or later. Fortunately, with the opening of the exchange list, his expenses lessened a lot. Most of the items there were inflated, but cheaper than when he sold to the apex sovereigns. This is equivalent to giving them less money. After all, if they directly withdrew the money, he wouldn't earn the price difference. There is also the Crystal of Life and the Crystal of Enlightenment, which he directly condensed from his system. One of each was condensed from a single system life point. He already experimented with the limitations of these items. The Crystal of Life can only extend one's life. Artificially making one older is not possible. There is also the Crystal of Enlightenment. No matter how much one used, one can only push their mastery to perfection. As for Transcendence Mastery, it's impossible. One needs to have the system to break the wall between Perfect Mastery and Transcendence Mastery. Life points are quite easy to condense, as they are just strands of the origin of time. However, for potential points, that could increase talent and potential, it's impossible. It seems to be a specialty of the system. Unless he fully deciphered it, condensing the potential points is impossible. Fortunately, the Crystal of Life and the Crystal of Enlightenment were enough. With all kinds of powerhouses scrambling for them, the money that others originally wanted to directly withdraw was bought by these powerhouses at a high price. All of this effectively lessened his expenses to a few quintillion a year. With no pressure for money, Maximus patiently modified the Aetherforge reactor. Although it may not be profitable in the short term, it has unlimited potential. As for the Dimensional Library, it was reaching its limits. The Myriad World Mall only sells books up to Tier 9. From Tier 10 and above, he can't even find miscellaneous books. Maximus didn't know if it will be unlocked after he updated his transdimensional system. However, as of now, it's in a semi-retirement state. He also couldn't sell the Tier 9 books he studied. With quintillions of system points every day, Maximus has already studied all professions he is interested to Tier 9. If he sold this knowledge, Maximus would surely have no problem with money in the short term. Unfortunately, as soon as he inputted into his shop, he was barred by a copyright warning. After a bit of investigation, he had come to know that all Tier 9 knowledge was protected. Unless it's an entirely different technique, one couldn't sell it in the Myriad World Mall. Maximus was only able to sell those lower-tier knowledge because there were too many of them that had similarities. Adding his transcendent insight into it was enough to qualify it to be sold. To sell Tier 9 knowledge, Maximus either had to modify the original content or create an entirely new one. If he had that time, why not study more knowledge and enrich himself? With no other choice, Maximus can only concentrate on other money-making schemes. Looking at another failed prototype of the Etherforge reactor, he sighed.
This won't do.
Without any progress, Maximus could only buy those Tier 11 materials hoping to create miracle. Opening the Ethereum Alliance projection, he noticed something abnormal in his merit balance. Initially, his balance jumped by hundreds of trillions every day. However, with a quick calculation, it reached quadrillions of additional merits every day.
What is it?
Did those apex sovereigns do something? After inquiring about the world's will, there was a shock and a smile on his face. The virtual game. That's right, the virtual game, Codexia World, was formally acknowledged by the world's will. The benefits of the game were thus repaid with merits. This is also why others are eager to upload their virtual applications to the world. Not only can they make money in the game, but they also get benefits from the world's will. Maximus didn't expect that his money game would be accepted by the world's will. Many had tried making games that directly gave money in the past. But what they got was only some pitiful merits and an empty wallet. Knowing this, Maximus didn't expect much to earn from the game. He only wanted everyone in the world to inscribe items so that he could print them. He didn't expect that the world's will would be moved and directly give him money. Maximus concluded that this should be thanks to the Crystal of Life and the Crystal of Enlightenment. These two factors are what drive the game to be regarded as beneficial to the world, thus the world's will rewarding him for it. In a good mood, he contacted various apex sovereigns for their Tier 11 materials. Chapter 359 Crossroad of Fate. After expressing his intention to buy Tier 11 materials, he received one private message after another. Brat, I have a few Tier 11 materials here. I only need some Crystal of Enlightenment. Maximus, just pay me in Crystal of Life. As for merits, I don't need them. I have Tier 11 materials here. Do you have an extra Crystal of Life and Crystal of Enlightenment? I want both. Do you have an extra Crystal of Life and Crystal of Enlightenment? I can pay with materials or merits. Want some Crystal of Life and Crystal of Enlightenment? Maximus muttered. After briefly reading their message, he saw that besides merits, they were also accepting Crystal of Life and Crystal of Enlightenment. After all, although merit can also enlighten someone, it's only for the power and essence of law. For techniques, skills, professional knowledge, etc., it's not possible. Furthermore, merit couldn't extend one's life infinitely like the Crystal of Life. Seeing they were so eager, Maximus smiled and offered to pay with Crystal of Life and Crystal of Enlightenment. Sure, a single Crystal of Life or Crystal of Enlightenment is equal to 10 merits.
Impossible.
Don't fool us with your tricks. A single crystal is only equivalent to a single merit at most. Seeing his reply, they were a little shocked and speechless. They were not fools. Based on a single crystal's energy intensity and function, it's only comparable to merit. They could accept it if they were paying in magic crystal, but for merit, it was impossible. After all, magic crystals are renewable. With their vast territory, they could mine as many magic crystals as they wanted. Seeing their reply, Maximus was not deterred. I mean the 1:10 ratio if when I bought your Tier 11 materials. If you wanted to buy one from me, you're welcome to buy with magic crystal. After seeing his reply, they calmed down. Exchanging some Tier 11 materials that they couldn't use for Crystal of Life or Crystal of Enlightenment is not a loss. However, not wanting to lose much, they still negotiated with Maximus. Some lowered the ratio, some only wanted to buy Crystal of Life and Crystal of Enlightenment from him. Some even proposed to trade with other materials. Unfortunately, Maximus was quite stubborn. This is a monopoly. What he says is the price. Furthermore, to buy Crystal of Life or Crystal of Enlightenment from him, they needed to sell him Tier 11 material first. Filled with indignation, they had no choice but to sell their precious material to Maximus at a discount. In his system, he had over 1 sextillion points. With a ratio of 1:10, it's equivalent to over 10 sextillion merits. If he used all of it, he could buy about 10 tons of Tier 11 material. However, he was not that stupid. After buying about a ton of material from an apex sovereign, he sold the remaining Crystal of Life and Crystal of Enlightenment for magic crystals. A Crystal of Life or a Crystal of Enlightenment cost 10 million, and to condense it he only needed 1 million magic crystal. Meaning he could have 10 times the profit with nothing, which is unlimited money. After exchanging a few hundred quintillion crystal of life and crystal of enlightenment, he had another sextillion system point. Repeating the process, Maximus worked tirelessly for a few months and almost wiped out the Tier 11 materials in the Ethereum Alliance Exchange Hall. Except for those who were in seclusion, no apex sovereign escaped his clutches. Even the three peak powerhouses, Fialon, Alabaster, and Riadius, were scammed. However, wary of their strength, Maximus still gave a discount of a 1-to-3 exchange ratio. Looking at his harvest, the smile on his lips couldn't be contained. Laughing like a maniac, he looked through his balance with an unbelievable look. 63 septillion system points.
Damn.
Cursing, he calmed himself down. From a few sextillions to over 60 septillion system points. This is almost all the accumulation of the Ethereum realm. About 3,000 apex sovereigns' entire property was in his hands. If not to maintain the operation of their territory, there would be more than 100 septillions or even octillion. As for the three peak apex sovereigns, they each contributed 10 septillion system points to him. Their guys were really rich. Furthermore, it seemed that they were just testing. After they confirmed the effect of the Crystal of Life and Crystal of Enlightenment, they would buy more. Yet, such an insane number was devoured by his system like nothing. After sending it to his dimensional storage, his system could swallow it whole no matter the size, and convert it to system points. I should have done this earlier. Seeing such a large profit, Maximus couldn't help but be dazzled. Suddenly a look of decadence appeared on his face. His mana and power of law seemed to have gone wild. While Maximus was in a daze, the barrier in the room started to crack. The world seemed to have become his enemy as the laws started to malfunction, the space started to destabilize, and chaotic will of all beings started to invade his mind. Suddenly, a burst of light emerged from his eyes. Controlling his very origin, he tried to stabilize his body, hiding it from the dimensional space. Not having a target, everything went back to normal. Just what happened? Is it the so-called demon tribulation?
No.
The world's will is targeting me. With shock, Maximus quickly analyzed his situation. The only one who could attack him this intensely is the world's will. It should be his because he stole the energy of the world. 60 septillion system points are 60 nonillion low magic crystals when converted. This was enormous, equivalent to the accumulation of Ethereum realm for millions of epochs. Originally, nothing would happen if he just used it normally. However, to directly absorb it with the system is like directly sucking the blood of the Ethereum realm. Initially, the world's will couldn't do anything to him, however too much damage triggered its protection mechanism. The whole Ethereum realm origin seemed to become his enemy, isolating and targeting him with all its means. There is really no free lunch in this world. He sighed. Now what do I do? Frowning, Maximus cursed the world for being stingy. Isn't it just some energy? After he became stronger, couldn't he just pay it back? Now he was in an isolated state. He couldn't even mobilize a bit of energy or the world's will would notice him. I can only use these system points as soon as possible. To bring back the equilibrium of the Ethereum realm, Maximus had to absorb these system points. After he used the system points, the energy the system sucked would return to the Ethereum realm, albeit concentrated on him. For the world's will, it didn't matter where the energy in its body was concentrated to, as long as it was there. Thinking of a solution, Maximus sighed in relief. There is only one way for him to quickly use the system points in his current state. Comprehend knowledge. As for the knowledge to comprehend, there are two types. The essence of law or the myriad dimensional knowledge from Tier 0 to Tier 8. The common essence of laws only requires about 1 septillion of system points. This means that over 60 septillion system points were equivalent to 60 common laws. For myriad dimensional knowledge, it's the infinite of all dimensions. A few septillions are nothing in front of it. These two paths are the paths of strength and wealth. Studying a few essences of law would surely make him stronger. For the myriad dimensional knowledge, after he mastered it to transcendence, he would no longer be short of money. In the past, studying myriad dimensional knowledge was his first choice when it came to acquiring wealth. However, after creating the Etherforge reactor, his path deviated. The former is full of thorns, while the latter allowed him to sit back and relax. Studying knowledge is not just putting some system points. It's also equivalent to him directly studying it. If a single system point is equivalent to a single day, then 60 septillion points were over 160 trillion epochs. No matter how strong-willed he is, he would probably collapse under that long time. Maybe just after a trillion epochs, he wouldn't even recognize himself. This is also why he was so careful when consuming the system points, using it little by little to master things. He would rather waste some money and create some failed products than suffer such torture. However, now he was at a crossroads. No matter what he chose, he needed to use his system points. Finally, after a bit of thinking, he chose the path of wealth. Wealth is power. Comprehending a few essences of law didn't have much use for him. Deciding on his path, Maximus gritted his teeth. Before starting, he briefly exited his form and sent a message and a bunch of items to his family. He didn't know when he would finish spending these system points. 10 years, 100 years, 1,000 years, Maximus had to prepare for everything. Ye damn stingy worlds will. Looking at the world one last time, Maximus started his operation. I hope I'm still me after this is done. Chapter 360. 1,000 years. 1,000 years later. In the imperial castle, in the old and ancient corridor, a chubby little girl was walking around curiously. Yeehaw! Where am I? The little girl muttered. The castle was too big that she got lost finding the kitchen. Suddenly, an ancient door attracted her attention, making her forget she was hungry. Could it be a treasure house hidden by father and uncle? With excitement on her face, she hurriedly opened the ancient door. To her surprise, even with Tier 3 strength, she couldn't budge the door. Does this door have a password? Placing her finger on her lips, she thought of a solution. Could I just destroy this door? As she muttered, her eyes lighting up. Taking out a Tier 7 attack jade, she threw it at the door while activating her protective treasure. Boom! As the smoke subsided, she saw the door was not even scratched. How? Right. How could the castle of my Shadow Crest easily be destroyed? The little girl muttered. How about this? With excitement, she took out a Tier 9 attack jade. Moving further away and setting up a protection array, she began to attack the door. Boom! The little girl thought she would be greeted by destruction, but what greeted her was still the same ancient door. Even the corridor was only filled with some rubbles. Impossible. Is this door made of Tier 10 material? With doubt and excitement, she took out a bunch of items and attacked it continuously. Attack after attack, yet the ancient door stood strong without receiving a scratch. Huff. Huff. Just what is hidden behind this door? Tired and exhausted, the little girl sat down. Unknowingly, while resting, the little girl fell asleep. Inside the ancient room was luxurious decoration with high-tier arrays, rich mana, and laws. Yet this room had been unoccupied for 1,000 years. Suddenly, a void silently tore open, condensing a man. Looking around, the man was in a daze, analyzing where he was. Retrieving his memory, he saw the inconspicuous life of a man named Maximus Shadowcrest. So I'm Maximus Shadowcrest? The man said in an emotionless tone. Over 30 trillion epochs worth of memories were like a sea, drowning such a memory like a drop of water. If not for the protective layer, he would even have a hard time finding such memories. Even though he knew who he was, no emotion flashed past his eyes. In his trillions of epochs of memory, the life of Maximus Shadowcrest was insignificant. Sagas and bibliographies, ranging from millions to billions of years, were much more magnificent than it is. Reviewing the memory of this man called Maximus Shadowcrest, he ranked it as a mediocre life. Besides the powerful system and ultimate physique, there is nothing noteworthy about it. Now what do I do? The man muttered. He exited seclusion because his origin was in chaos. It seemed to be telling him to get out and meet his so-called family. But family? What a redundant word. If not for the irritability preventing him to continue digesting knowledge, he wouldn't even entertain this thought. Just meet this so-called family? Whatever. Opening the door, he saw a little girl sleeping in the corridor. Feeling his bloodline flowing through the girl, he stopped. This should be one of them. Approaching the little girl, he poked her chubby cheeks, waking her up. Yawn. Looking around, the little girl saw a man in front of her. Who are you? How dare you disrupt this lady's rest? She muttered in dissatisfaction. Looking carefully at the man's face, she was shocked. You are my grandpa. As she muttered in excitement. What is your name? He muttered emotionlessly.
I'm Maxine.
My father's name is Max and my mother's name is Ella. Maxine introduced gracefully.
Max, Ella.
I see. He nodded, retrieving information about them. Seeing his chaotic origin calm down a little, he felt it was enough and was about to return to seclusion. As for looking at the others, he didn't care. What's more important than swimming in the myriad of knowledge?
Family? Love? Wealth? Power? None.
He felt that learning was enough. He could create and have everything once he mastered the knowledge of myriad dimensions. Just as he was about to go back, he felt someone tugging his sleeve.
What? Grandpa.
I want to go shopping. Maxine asked cheerfully. Grandpa should be rich. I can eat whatever I want.
She thought.
No, he said ruthlessly, waving his hand and throwing Maxine back to her place. Seeing that she was thrown carelessly on the ground, Maxine was in a daze. She was a pampered lady. Everything in the world was at her fingertips. No matter who it was, her cousins, uncles, or anyone else, wouldn't be able to reject her request. Seeing her grandfather ruthlessly throw her on the ground, Maxine teared up.
Sniff.
Maxine looked at her grandfather, sniffling out pitifully. Maximus also stopped in his tracks as he felt his origin become more chaotic. Looking at the little girl, he frowned. Waiting to put the girl in a forever state of happiness, he condensed a spell in his hands. However, before he could cast it out, a wave of energy coming from his origin crushed his spell.
I couldn't even manipulate them, huh?
Putting his arms down, he kneeled beside the girl. Let's go shopping, Maximus said, dragging her.
I don't want to.
Maxine said rebelliously, forcefully taking her hands back.
Humph.
First throwing her out, then dragging her? Is she trash or what? Seeing such a stubborn girl, Maximus frowned. Opening his vast repertoire of knowledge, he saw a way to coax a little girl. Food, clothes, sweet words, accessories. Seeing the chubby Maxine, food should be appropriate. Browsing through billions of trillions of recipes, he locked onto one. Rainbow glaze pop. A recipe created by a supreme. It has myriad tastes, catering to the taste of everyone. Condensing the rainbow glaze pop, Maxine's eyes were quickly attracted. The sweet smell and enticing look made Maxine quickly put down her pride and take the food in her hands.
Humph.
If this doesn't taste good, I won't forgive you, Maxine said coquettishly. However, as she tasted the food, Maxine's eyes widened.
This
is delicious and sweet.
Now let's go.
Seeing the girl calm down, Maximus quickly dragged her to finish the task. He doubted that if he didn't take this girl shopping, she would continue to sulk, disturbing his origin. In Moonshadow City, Maximus and Maxine were seen running around, holding food.
Grandpa.
Here, I'll take you to the food I like. After buying more food, Maximus looked at Maxine speechlessly.
Is this not enough?
They had been eating and walking for the past few hours, yet this little girl didn't seem to have enough. He may not be full, but he was tired. If not for scanning this little girl's physique, Maximus would have even thought she was a little monster in disguise.
Maxine Shadowcrest. Age, 4. Physique. Dimensional food devourer. Strength. Tier 3. Is Grandpa impatient?
Maxine asked, tearing up. She had realized that her grandpa was a little tsundere. He was cold on the outside but hot on the inside. Her grandfather looked at her like she was the most troublesome kid he wanted to quickly discard. Yet as long as he saw pitiful eyes, he would pick even the stars to satisfy her. With no other choice, Maximus continued to take Maxine around. Suddenly, while they were walking toward a stall, they saw a man stop them.
Uncle Liam?
Maxine muttered excitedly, quickly recognizing Liam. Hearing Maxine, Maximus quickly retrieved the memory about Liam.
Liam?
Seeing the majestic man in front of him, brimming with power, he really couldn't connect the child in his memories.
Father?
Liam muttered coldly, with some emotion. Liam thought their father would only be in seclusion for a few years. Yet 10 years, 100 years, now 1,000 years had passed. Looking at the man who raised them up, Liam couldn't help but be emotional. Perfect, take this little thing, I have to go, Maximus said coldly, like finding the perfect tool man. Liam was a little stunned hearing his father. Don't you want to meet others? It's been 1,000 years. Liam didn't know how many tears his mothers and sister shed missing their father. Now looking at his father's emotionless and cold eyes, Liam felt suffocated. It looks like father has gone senile, Liam said forcefully. Although he couldn't feel his father's energy, he should still be tier 8. Hundreds of years ago, with the help of his wives, Liam already reached Tier 9. Seeing his father was still Tier 8, despite leaving them for 1,000 years, Liam couldn't help but mock. However, Maximus didn't feel anger or anything. Seeing that Maxine didn't cry after being with Liam, he was ready to leave. He couldn't wait to explore the sea of knowledge. This charades had been long enough. Seeing that his father ignored him, leaving her with little Maxine, Liam grew angry. Controlling the Empire's array, Liam teleported him and his father to an isolated land. I'll let you know that a son is always better than a father,
Liam murmured.
Meanwhile, looking at her uncle and grandfather disappearing, Maxine was speechless.
Tisk, no more fun, Maxine pouted.